morning. For our first assignment, the two topics that I wanted to discuss within Ontario schools policies are SHSM and credit recovery. And I chose these because they're very different topics, but at the same time, I think we ask a lot of the same questions in responding to these as guidance counselors. So I've just got both my computers here just so I can quickly summarize each program. But the Specialist High Skills Majors program is a program that allows students to focus on career paths that matches their skills, interests, and talents while working towards their secondary school diploma. The program also helps students transition into their chosen career path once they graduate. By taking a specific cluster of courses, students gain the skills, knowledge related to their chosen field. And it also allows them to focus on their secondary school education towards a career area of their choice. Now, at my school that I'm currently at St. Audrey Bassett, we have quite a few different SHSMs, and I'm not entirely sure exactly how many that we do have, but off the top of my head, the ones that I'm very familiar with are the transportation SHSM. So we have an aviation in there, SHSM. We have the transportation SHSM. We also have the construction SHSM. We have a business, hospitality, but I think we have about 7 or 8 right now. And when looking at the conceptual framework for the knowledge and skill inquiry questions that we ask, the who am I, the what are my opportunities, what do I want to become, and my plan for achieving these goals, these really fall in line with a lot of the questions that we ask students if they choose to embark on one of these SHSMs. So the who am I, knowing myself, identifying characteristics that describe who they are, and identify factors that shape that who they are and who they might become over time. I think these are very important questions when you are about to engage in an SHSM, because if you already know at that point in your journey that there are certain skills or qualities that really appeal to you, or career paths that really appeal to you, I think this is a very important question that needs to be touched on. Exploring the opportunities. In terms of exploring the opportunities, some of these opportunities, like the SHSM, really will help students guide their post-secondary opportunities, I suppose. And in SHSMs, you often explore a variety of fields of work, occupations, and careers. And you also investigate the preparation required for a variety of school and community-based opportunities. Under making decisions and setting goals, who do I want to become? I think, again, this is a very important question that students need to reflect on when making their choices. Identify demands, rewards, and other features of the various opportunities that they've explored, for example, and review and revise their goals in light of changes that they recognize in themselves and in the opportunities that are available to them. I've noticed from my time teaching at St. Audrey Bassett that some students have identified, whether it was during the course of their SHSM or leading into it, that their goals or their plans may have changed. And I think these are very important questions as a guidance counselor that you need to be discussing with students, whether or not these are pathways that they are really interested in pursuing. Because if they're not that interested in that path or that invested in that pathway, it could be I don't want to say a waste of time for them, because I think all these skills are always valuable. But if their heart is really not in this, then I'm not entirely sure that it's beneficial to them. And achieving goals and making transitions. What is my goal for making or achieving these goals? Creating a plan that identifies the detailed steps required to achieve the goals they have set, identify the resources required to implement the plan, and identify potential obstacles and challenges they may encounter in implementing their plan. in SHSMs, there is a lot of prerequisites or areas that they need to fulfill along that journey. And I think students need to be aware of those choices or those responsibilities or obligations or however you wish to word it, and whether or not that they are willing to meet those demands. Because as I've noticed through SHSM, some students aren't willing to meet those obligations or fulfill their requirements under the SHSM framework. So I think these are conversations that need to be had with students about goal setting, how they're going to achieve those goals. And I guess it goes back to the making decisions and setting goals, but it's the follow through in this portion of it. What is my plan for achieving it? And whether or not they are prepared to fulfill those obligations. Because at the end of the day, if this is not something that they are prepared to meet, and I've seen it in the past, again, then it's just you're setting up students for failure rather than success if they're not fully aware of what the demands are of this program. So in terms of SHSM, I think it's a fantastic program, and as somebody who came from the skilled trades, I really talk to my younger students, my grade 10s, about really starting to think about enrolling in the SHSM and giving it a hard look. And I do try to discuss the obligations that come with entering into an SHSM and how it can be somewhat difficult at times to fulfill some of these obligations, like your first aid training or your experimental learning and things of that degree. But it's such a wonderful program, and I know that our guidance counselors at our school do a phenomenal job of working with the students and helping really shape, or not shape so much, but gain a clear understanding of who that student is, what their interests are, and what pathways they might want to pursue. Because for a lot of young people, it is for a lot of parents, honestly, it is very confusing, pardon me, on how to enter into these pathways. And a lot of these pathways don't need post-secondary education in terms of colleges or universities. And I think the education that the guidance counselor does provide goes a long way in helping to ease a lot of those questions and concerns, and really can put a student on the right string to obtaining all that success under one of these programs. Now, the credit recovery program, I found this one extremely interesting because I don't know a lot about credit recovery. I've heard the term many times. As a teacher, I've had to communicate with student success and my vice principals and guidance about students that were struggling in my classes. But outside of that, I really don't have a lot of knowledge about it. So that's why I chose this one. And the credit recovery program is intended for students who have failed one or more courses within the last 2 years. And a credit recovery profile must be submitted to the main office for every student who attempts and fails a course. Without digging too deeply into this, it is intended for students who have failed one or more of their compulsory courses and can be taken concurrently with other courses during the semester or taken in summer school. I'm getting lost in reading this document that we have here on our St. Andre Bessette website. But what I really found interesting about the credit recovery process is that it is different from credit rescue. I thought credit recovery would fall in the hands of myself if I was to fail a student, and I've yet to fail a student as a new teacher. But the credit recovery process goes to a credit recovery teacher, which is not me, whereas the credit rescue would fall into my hands. And that's what I find really interesting. And the amount of communication that I would have to have as a teacher with the student success team in order to build this profile is something that I hope that I never have to fail a student, but I think that I may encounter that one day, and I will get a full breakdown or rundown on this process, which will give me a bit more clarity. But looking back at this conceptual framework, the knowledge and skills in the 4 areas, from what I do understand about credit recovery, I think guidance would have to sit down with the parents and the student and ask a lot of hard questions in terms of whether or not the student really wanted to go down this pathway of trying to recover that credit. And it's the who am I that really jumps out to me, and it's knowing yourself, discussing their interests, their strengths, their intelligences, speaking to factors that have shaped who they are. And I'm kind of paraphrasing on this one here, because when I look at who am I and factors that would have shaped who they are, I would look at that as what factors shaped the student to not have success in their course. Were there any extenuating circumstances in that semester that have impacted their ability to be successful? In terms of exploring opportunities, that is what this entire process is in credit recovery, because there are, from what I understand, several options in how to recover that credit, whether it's through summer school or virtual learning, or through a credit recovery program that is offered through our school in certain semesters. So I think really exploring and understanding what opportunities are available to that student and which choice might be most beneficial to their success is something that a guidance counselor would really have to sit down and talk to a student with. What do I want to become? Well, in terms of that, it's the making decisions and setting goals. And you are identifying the demands, the rewards, and various opportunities. You are also reviewing and revising their goals in light of changes that they recognize in themselves and the opportunities that are available to them. In terms of the credit recovery, who or what do I want to become? Again, I really think that's an exploratory question that you would ask a student as a guidance counselor. Why do you want to recover this credit? Why is it important to you? What might be different this time around if you were to attempt a credit recovery versus just retaking the course? And from what I've gathered from speaking to our guidance counselors at my school, these are a lot of questions that students don't often have answers to. And they, in terms of setting those goals to meet those demands of a credit recovery, sometimes it's not the best option for them. These are goals and decisions that they are prepared to meet or they are not ready to commit to. And achieving those goals and making transitions. So what is their plan? For those that do decide that they would like to enroll in credit recovery, and it's a whole team approach between the student success team, guidance, the credit recovery teacher, the teacher that initially failed that student on, and it's not just a singular decision there. It's that whole team approach where everyone sits down and discusses the best way forward and laying out plans to achieve those goals. Can the student meet those demands? Is the student willing to identify any resources to execute their plan, and to really honestly discuss any obstacles and challenges they may encounter in implementing their plan and devising possible solutions. I do know of one student that I have in my class right now. He is not coming to class. Attendance is a very large issue. Credit recovery is something that was discussed in his profile in the past. And then he was going to go to, there was a specialized school to put him on a pathway for success. And the name of this pathway school is escaping me right now. But this student, from what I understood from talking to guidance, is constantly changes his mind on whether he wants to SWAC. I think SWAC is the name of the alternative school. Anyway, the student changes his mind consistently whether or not this is the pathway that he wants to go on. So to get him to not only implement his plan or goal and then follow through with it with achieving those goals and making transitions has been a difficulty for the guidance counselor in trying to set up a plan of success for that student. And I think as a guidance counselor, it's one of those things where if you're setting up young people for success and helping them identify their strengths and their weaknesses and who they want to become or what they want to become, or what factors are impacting their life in order to achieve success, or what factors are holding them back. These are very deep discussions that really impact the journey, the future of a student. And if a student is unwilling to commit, and I think that just muddies the water even more. And again, like, this credit recovery is so fascinating to me because this is not something that I was familiar with when I went to high school. And I'm sure it was never in place when I was in high school, but the amount of factors that go into this decision-making process for credit recovery, the amount of people and parties that are involved, and the amount of communication necessary to make this a viable option for a student is something that I think is an interesting component of the high school process now. But between those two, between the SHSM and the credit recovery, again, it's very much exploring that student's identity of who they want to become, who they currently are, what their interests are currently, whether it's to pursue something in a career path that they really enjoy in terms of SHSM, or in terms of the credit recovery. Is this really something that they're interested in pursuing, or is it going to be a lot of resources and time constraints and pressure for a student that is already struggling? And sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Who they want to become, like, what do they want to achieve at the end of this? SHSM is just a career path they want to achieve, and if that is something that they want to achieve, how do they get to that pathway? In terms of the credit recovery, do they really want to recover that credit? Is that something that they're really ready and willing to put the effort into? And then achieving those goals and making the transitions, again, with SHSM, there is a lot of commitment to it, just like there is with credit recovery. So both of them are very much the same in you've made a plan, you've decided that you want to pursue this. Are you ready to achieve it? How are you going to achieve those goals? What will the student bring forward in terms of meeting those demands and those goals? So those are the two topics that I really wanted to cover. I found in your document here of the Ontario Schools Policy, there were so many more that I was extremely interested in. Religious education courses is not something that I found to be a topic that I would have found interesting, but course prerequisites was extremely interesting to me. Supervised alternate learning, community service hour requirement. I really did want to touch on that one, but I thought that was a very simplistic one to do because I think that obtaining those 40 community volunteer hours and the documentation and all that kind of stuff would have been very easy to talk about. And explaining how certain credits can be achieved outside of school. This is something I really wanted to discuss because I've never even heard of this before. It's something I'm definitely going to look into. But yeah, there's a bunch of interesting topics here. And the reason why I chose the video response in terms of the submission is because I just feel like it was a bit more personable, and then you could see a bit of my thought process as I tried to talk about it. I know I tripped over my words quite a bit here, and there was a bit of pauses and a little bit of dead air time in here, but I thought I could cover a lot more through a video than rather just trying to type out my response. I think that these are very interesting conversations as a guidance counselor. And I think I put this in my introduction earlier in the discussion post. I didn't know what guidance counselors really did. I thought their sole purpose was to help you plan your schedule in high school. And I didn't really understand the umbrella of things that they provide. And through reading those articles that we had brought up, and the self help, or the mental help programs, or mental health programs that some schools guidance counselors are putting into place, I think is absolutely fascinating. So this role of a guidance counselor is much more encompassing than I ever thought it was. So I'm very much looking forward to completing the rest of this program and learning a heck of a lot more about guidance, because it is extremely interesting to me. I'm just rambling at this point. That's my submission. Those are the two topics that I chose, and I hope that I hit most of those rubric points, and in how important not only it was for a guidance counselor to play a part in these topics, but also the student success team, the parents, and the student themselves, and as well as the teachers, in terms of helping students find success.